Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. Fuck Ice. I'm your ever-loving host, Shorty. We're going to look at Land of Never today. Some of the Mad Cave Studios jam, and I do like Mad Cave. You've got to understand that by now. But it was one that I was kind of on the fence for a little while. The default Land of it all is what convinced me in the end to give it a shot. But Peter Pan Neverland is in public domain. Anyone can do what they want with it. Any money made no one goes to the Great Ormond Street Hospital. This happened a long time ago. But what I've seen quite often in the past few years is when things have gone to public domain, there tends to be horror versions of them. And I am a horror fan, but I've never really engaged because it honestly feels like lazy horror writing. Like, they have this idea of just a slasher, and then without really that much thought, it appears, at least based on the trailers, they just go, oh yeah, but it's Winnie the Pooh, or Popeye. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool and everything, but you can make really good horror movies. Even low-budget things can be very entertaining. So when I saw Land of Never, clearly Neverland, clearly Peter Pan, I was like, okay. Looking at the cover, looking at the colour palette used, I was thinking to myself, this is going to be a horror thing, using Peter Pan as just a stand-in for any of the horror thing they want to be doing. And yeah, that's not great for me. That's not something which I get excited about. Like I said, though, Steve Orlando's name was on it, and I was like, right, okay, I've read a couple of things by him recently that I've thoroughly enjoyed. Not just surprised that I much enjoyed them, but like, holy hell, these are really, really good books, like better than I ever thought they'd be. So I went in with an open mind as I possibly could, and the first thing that hit me was the artwork. It is very loose, very scratchy, very lo-fi. The kind of stuff I really, really like. I think it flies in the face of the overly crisp, overly shiny stuff that Marvel usually puts out, even the IDW can on occasion. Some of the image stuff even goes for that like really hyper-focused, hyper-real stuff. And I don't like it that much. I prefer slightly grungy, slightly stylistic stuff. This art style really will hit me. It's not perfect. There's a couple of bits where human form doesn't look quite right. Sometimes on purpose. Sometimes feels like maybe a rushed choice was made, or they put a body in an unusual position and didn't quite get the anatomy right to back that up. Didn't stop me enjoying it because the world is also a very good character in this, and I love that. It is dilapidated, rundown, grimy as all hell, to the point that when you see anything which isn't that way, it stands out as being weird and unusual. We get a very nice cover shot, which then gets paid off later on in the comic book, of a rundown, I was going to say amusement arcade, no, fairground, no, theme park is looking at the size of it, completely abandoned. And I like this kind of thing. I grew up in a place which had a very, very cool theme park, which has since gone to absolute rack and ruin. Everything's been pulled off, and I was really kind of annoyed I never got to go back there before it completely closed down. The idea of it sitting half dilapidated and crumbling just intrigues me. But the story is still kind of Peter Pan to a certain degree. We have Wendy who goes missing. Certain people would refer to the person who took it as a lost boy. And I'm like, right, yeah, okay. So we are going to go down that route. But here's the thing that kind of really elevated it for me. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a slasher in terms of like a supernatural thing right now. It doesn't feel like Peter Pan is going to have magic powers. He's not like going to be able to fly around and never age and use fairy dust to make other people fly. It feels like this is just a really, really dark, scary slasher story about just a dude who has a fixation and is using that to satisfy a need to kill people. Now, it could go one of two ways here. It could be that. It could be that the entire point of this is he is doing it because something happened to him as a child, and he is living out fantasy in the best way he can do it, which also satisfies his cravings. Or it could be people in the real world simply see patterns, and this is totally possible. It happens all the time. There's a genuine thing where people will see faces and shapes, and we are pattern-seeking creatures. So if, without any better explanation, the thing that makes sense is, well, maybe with the few little things, like it's Wendy that's gone missing, somebody referred to as a lost boy who's taken them, maybe Neverland was the name of this theme park, maybe those things are not really connected. Maybe the lost boy, Peter, maybe that isn't really his name, maybe he's done this before all over the place, and the rest of the lost boys were just random people. I mean, who knows? One thing I like about it is it doesn't answer all those questions. It gives us some fantastic characters to play around with. The absolute failure of a human being, the main cop who's investigating it, the father of Wendy, is brilliantly written. I hate him, and he's fantastic. I want to know more about what's going on with Peter, and I do want to see more of the world as it's going to be examined and put on display for us. It reminds me of Stephen King, and I mean that with nothing but respect. That's from me for now, though. Until I see you all again, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.